Hello, this is Jack Bosch speaking with the Forever Cash Life Real Estate Podcast. I'm super excited to have another episode, and I have one of our star guests today is actually one of our students, one of our land flippers. Paul Young has been doing land flips for now almost 10 years, I would think, and he's one of our students, and we're not going to tell you much more about it until we really get started. In the meantime, I'm excited for you to be here. Again, as always, if you like this episode, share it with other people. Share it with those people that you know are struggling in life. They're struggling in their jobs. They don't like them. They want to break out. So go share this information with them. And also, if you can, go to iTunes. If you're watching this, listening to this on iTunes, go leave us a 5-star review. Do both. Click the 5-star box or whatever it is, the 5-star button, but also leave a description on there. Tell us what this thing means to us. And of course, if you didn't like it, don't say a thing, right? All right, so with that, let's get started.
Welcome to the Forever Cash Life Real Estate Investing Podcast with your hosts, Jack and Michelle Bosch. Together, let's uncover the secrets to building true wealth through real estate and living a purpose-driven life.
All right, so there we are. We are back, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Mr. Paul Young. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing just fine today, Jack. Thank you so much for having me on.
Paul. I'm excited to have you here. Now, for you listeners, the Paul has been in real estate for, well, I'll let him talk about it, but Paul is one of our students. Paul has been a land flipper for how many years now?
I met you in 2010, and we started late 2010, so about 9 years.
All right. So 9 years, going on 9 years. Now, great. So let me ask you, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us how you got to come to this. What did you do before doing land? Just tell us a little bit of your background.
Well, actually, I've been in real estate since, I think, 1983.
Okay.
We started out, my wife and I started out with a small apartment building. And so we initially started out with rentals. As far as I've been able to tell, rentals and land are the only two things that ever worked for me. But we did start out in rentals. And so anyway, once that we got that to work, I started looking at some other ways to create income with real estate, mostly having to do with rentals. But I started looking at other ways of making money. And then right before, right before the year 2000, we had moved to the mountains. So at that point, since my wife was telecommuting and I was kind of out of a job, I started looking at rehabbing down in Bakersfield, which is down the mountain from where we live.
So you're in greater LA area, right? Basically.
Well, I was born and raised in LA. And then, so this is the first time I lived outside of LA. We actually moved to Kern County there for a while.
All right. So yeah, Bakersfield. Yeah, that's North LA, of course. Yes.
Right. But the reason I bring that up is because while we were up there and I was looking at rehabbing and doing things like that, my wife passed away in a car accident.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, and so I had a choice to make at that point. My two sons were in high school, and my wife was making almost all the money at that point. And so I either had a choice to get a job and just, have someone else take care of my kids, or I had a choice to work at home and try and find some kind of business to work. So I did try a bunch of different things. I looked at foreclosures, I looked at probate, I looked at loan modifications, I looked, a bunch of different things. Finally, I met you, and I think it's in Las Vegas, in 2010, at somebody else's seminar. I tried his program too, and what I was impressed with was a lot of the problems that I had come up with, you solved, like the loan, writing loans that act there, and then the IRS thing about being a dealer. I was very impressed with the simplicity of the style. And at the same time, you were able to overcome these problems and challenges that I thought there was no way to do. And you made it work so successfully, you're making 5 figures a month. And so that's what I was looking for, some kind of way of making an income come in consistently. So gave it a shot. And like I said, it's the only other thing that I've ever found that worked. And your idea of making land cash flow like that on a regular basis really, to a large extent, saved me and my sons financially, because he was able to tide us over from one thing to the next, like nothing else I've ever seen. So,
Wonderful.
still doing land. As you probably know, I've never really like gone gangbusters and things like that, but I've done enough to, stay fairly consistent, and at the same time, try different avenues, expand the business a little bit, and get my sons involved at the same time.
Right.
But that's why we're still with land, because it's just been so great for us.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I knew part of your story because you're obviously also in our Hall of Fame, but I never knew the full story. So I didn't know that your wife had passed away. I'm so sorry to hear that. So you were in this really difficult situation of what to do with teenage sons, which obviously losing their mom is more than traumatic at that age. And you did the bold thing. You did the tough thing. You did the honorable thing, the wonderful thing, that even though you have a computer science, what is you do in engineering, right?
Computer science degree, yeah.
Computer science degree. You could have gotten a nice job somewhere else making like 100 grand or 150 grand or something like that. You made the decision to stay at home, take care of the family, and find something. I applaud you for that. And then our paths crossed. So when you say problem solved, you said it's something like that I was able to, I don't know what exactly those problems were, but you said like, so problems that you didn't think it could be solved, that our system could solve it. What exactly are you referring to that?
Oh, yeah, like I was mentioning, what is that law called? The one where they changed it so that people financing their own properties to sell.
Oh, the Dodd-Frank Act?
Right. Yeah, Dodd-Frank. You figured out that for land that doesn't apply because there's nobody living there, right?
Right, because Dodd-Frank, just for everyone to know, Dodd-Frank applies. You got to check with the attorney. This is not legal advice, but the Dodd-Frank Act, to our knowledge, based on what my attorneys told me, applies only to dwellings. So it's and it actually refers over to dwellings as defined by, I think, Regulation Z. And Regulation Z is some things that if you have a real estate license, I have one in Arizona. I don't use it, but I have one. That I looked that up, what that means, and the definition of dwelling is a residential unit of a residential structure of 1 to 4 units. So land is obviously not a residential structure. So therefore, it's outside of the definition what the Dodd-Frank Act even applies to. So we don't have to do, and if you fall under the Dodd-Frank Act, now you have to jump through hoops when you do seller financing, right? After so many, and I don't know exactly what the number is, but since it doesn't affect us on the land area, you have to do certain things, like you have to send every loan, seller financing application to a mortgage originator who basically has to approve it and stamp it, and it adds extra bureaucracy, extra cost, and so you can still do them, but you have to jump through more hoops. And with land, you don't. That entire thing doesn't affect us a single thing. So okay, that's cool. So what else were you? What else were challenges that you were thinking you were facing that you feel this has resolved?
I didn't want the IRS to classify me as a dealer.
Right? The dealer status. That's another big one. Yes. So the dealer status, I know you can explain it, but I can explain it. Why don't you give it a thing? What is your understanding of how that is, and what that solved?
My understanding is that if you do a certain number of real estate transactions, similar types, and the number is not specified, the IRS can just cut the line anywhere they want, as far as I know. So, is it 3, 5, 10, 20? I didn't know. And so I had no way to prepare for that. Right. And you, your accountant, and you discovered some law somewhere in the IRS code that said that doesn't apply to land.
Right. And we'll put the code, actually the pieces, let me make a note. We'll put that IRS exemption into the show notes, and if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put it below. Always put a link into where you can find out about it. Let me just say IRS exception. So I'll make myself a note that our team puts that out there. But in essence, what that loophole is it actually says, and we were faced with that too. I can perhaps quick tell a story that when we started out, we did 63 in our first year, 63 deals in our first year while having jobs. And when I say we, it's obviously Michelle and I, and we were in a situation that we had made a bunch of money and generated like about $5,000 or $6,000 in cash flow per month already in the first 10 months. But that represented about future profits in terms of like notes that we owned. Like we allowed people, we bought a property for 1,000, sold it for 10,000, and they paid us 1,000 down, and they paid us $200 a month or $400 a month, whatever the thing is. But these unpaid principal of these loans were adding up to something like $400,000 for the year, and we had received a fraction of that, but obviously not all of that. And the profit margins, because we're buying our products at 10 cents on the dollar, were astronomical, right? They were like 90% profit margins on these deals. So the IRS says if you do a certain amount of seller financing deals, or not even seller financing deals, if you do a certain amount of flips, you are a dealer. And if you're a dealer, they say you cannot use the installment sale method. So what that means in essence is that if we have $400,000 of unpaid principal, out of which $360,000 is profit that we have not yet received, the IRS, if you're a dealer, would force you to pay taxes on the $360,000 that same year that you generated, that you did the sale, even though most of the money has not been received yet. Obviously, that's a neck breaker, right? Because if you have $360,000 in profits and you have to pay 30% of that or 35% of that or whatever the number is in taxes, you have to pay well over $100,000 that you haven't received yet. So that's the fast way to bankruptcy. And so we went to our CPA and he looked at that, and we have done an interview with our CPA in a prior podcast episode, literally just a few weeks ago, with Warren Turl. So you can contact him there and look at that and listen to that, watch that podcast interview and or that show. And he dug into this tax code, and he found an exception that we'll again put in the show notes or put a link into from where you can get it. And we found that, and that basically in layman's terms says that if you buy a piece of land and you flip it, if you don't materially change it in the middle, if you don't like develop it and put all kinds of stuff in there, put in a septic system or utilities to it or something like that, you just buy it and sell it, which is what 90% of our deals are, 95%, 98% of our deals are, then you are exempt from the dealer status. So, and that obviously, this is what you're referring to, right? So yeah. Now, and what that essentially means that now, if you have $400,000 of unpaid principal, of which 90% of profit, $360,000 of unrealized profit, and you receive, let's say, 10% of that in the first year in terms of payments, you only pay taxes on those 10%. And even there, after you subtract the ordinary business expenses that you can subtract as a business owner anyway. So now your tax burden is like this instead of like paying $100 and something thousand in taxes.
Yes, and like you said, that's a killer if you can't get out of that one. Land fit the bill perfectly.
Yes. So great. So you got started, and then what happened? Tell us a little bit of your path. Tell us your experience. Tell us tell us some of that. What's happened since then?
I think we kind of started like everybody else because, the basics are kind of the same. In fact, we got the whole family involved. My sons, and my mom came sometimes to help us with the envelopes closed, put stamps on the envelopes and address them. So it was really a family effort, which I kind of liked. Because the boys were old enough in high school, so they would do stuff.
And your sons come with you to our events now. Like you're part of our mastermind, the Ultimate Boardroom, and one of your sons usually comes along, and I really love seeing that. I mean, it's like, tell me about, if I may ask, what has it done? Like, I imagine you went through some difficult times after that, and so you working together with your kids, has that been easy, or What has it done for you guys in your relationship?
You know, that's a good question. I think that, well, when they were younger, you know, it did help us to do a group activity together on a regular basis. I really did like that, and the relationship that it built, you know, especially since they didn't have a mother anymore. You know, I'm like both roles, right? So I'm trying to, you know, keep the relationship tight, and it seemed to help, you know. More recently, since my older son has gotten married and it's kind of his own life now. Yeah, you don't see him as much as you used to. They used to trade off going to your events. But now my younger son, Peter, he is helping me with the business. And what I see with that is, you know, when he sees the way a business runs and he sees the ups and downs, the pluses and minuses, he's made the decision that he wants to continue in that vein, you know, instead of like relying on a job for 20, 30, 40 years. He's made the decision to stick with business. And I think a large part of that is because he's seen this over a number of years and he's seen what it can do. So that's a real plus, I think.
Right, that is a beautiful. And by the way, I have to say your sons turned out great. I mean, I know them both; they're wonderful guys, and you can be very proud of what you have done as a dad, playing both roles. So, congratulations, Paul. That was So they're wonderful guys. Great. So now, tell us a couple of deals. Like, what's kind of like what is your best deal that you have done?
Let's see. I just refreshed my mind on that one because I had to send the details to Barbara. I believe it's one of the best ones. Is we had purchased 5 lots from one seller. I guess I don't know what happened, but anyway, they tried selling other different ways.
It happens all the time. Yeah, we buy multiple properties from people all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think this was our first one, and so it was pretty exciting to us, you know. So we got all 5 lots for, I think, just over $8,000, $8,250 or something like that. And then once we closed escrow on all 5, actually, I don't even know if we did all 5 because we separated them. So anyway, the one that actually was on a paved road, was on utilities, that one sold pretty quick, like in a week. So we sold that one for $9,000 something.
So, wait. So you bought them all for 8,000 something. You sold one for 9,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now you own the other 7 free and clear.
Yeah, kind of. So when we sold those, it was just profit added on to the first one.
Right.
And we sold the other ones, I think, for about between 8 and 9 each.
All right. So that adds up with for a total of.
Well, about almost 40,000 in profit.
All right, 40,000 in profit. How many lots was it again?
5.
5. So I got that wrong. I got 8,000, not 8 lots. 5 lots.
Right.
So you have another 4 times 9. Yeah, that's another $36,000 in profit. So it's like about $40,000 total. I understand a couple of them we sold with seller financing. Or were they all cash deals?
No, all of them.
Yeah. Well, if you then add the interest into it, then your profit probably turned out to be more like $80,000, right?
Yeah, it would be a lot more.
Yeah.
And I was not considered a dealer.
That's right. And you were not considered a dealer. That's exactly right. I don't know why my face is so red here in the picture. Let me see if I do this. Now it's all bright, but we'll figure it out. Do live shows here. Sometimes the lighting is not perfect, but we'll get it done. If I turn it off, I'm too dark. So either way, that is exciting, and that's exciting. So now, since then, you have continued doing deals. Now, I want to ask you to share with us one technique that I actually learned from you, and that is your drop in price kind of technique. Remember that one?
Oh yeah.
Do you mind sharing that with us?
I can share it with you. Just I don't use it myself that often.
No, you shouldn't. As a matter of fact, like once he explains what it is, I'm going to add on to the end saying like, This is a great little technique that you can use, but don't use it all the time because you're training otherwise your buyers that you're doing this all the time. But every once in a while, this is a really cool little technique that you can do. So remember, we're buying these properties really cheap. We're buying properties for 5 to 25 cents on a dollar, and they're worth obviously much more. So tell us how this little technique works.
Well, it was it was a while ago, right, that I told you about this. I think.
Yes. And I loved it. And I've applied it. I applied it right away very successfully. It's like, not all the time, but I was like, let me try this. And boom, it worked. So let's share that little nugget with everyone here.
Oh, well, there was what I'd done was I had set the asking price for, higher than we usually do, and advertised it, and people knew about it. And then we dropped the price dramatically to gain interest in it. And it sold pretty quick after that.
So exactly. So in summary, in essence, what Paul is doing occasionally, and what you can do too, listening to this, is when we sell our properties, we like to offer often a bargain price, right? We sell two ways. We sell with wholesaling. Basically, we buy a property for $2,000 that's worth $20,000, and we go sell it for $12,000, a quick wholesale price, 60% of market value. Boom, it sells, right? Or for $9,900, $9,999, right? For 50% of market value, basically, for $10,000, it sells very quickly. However, sometimes a property might still sit a little bit there because there's no urgency, or it's not perceived as like this bargain of the century. So what Paul did, did you do that on purpose, or was it just by accident?
You're talking about something that happened 7 years ago. I don't remember all the details. I think that.
Dude, you haven't do that. Half and half?
Yeah, I mean, we got the idea, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I did it intentionally because I had the idea, but no one ever told me to do it. I think we're just trying it out.
But you need to do this a couple of times, like a year at least. Not every time, but like I think it's pretty safe to do this every 3-4 months or so on a property, and do it on some of the ones, on the nicer ones with a bigger profit margin. So here's what he's doing. He's taking a property that, let's say, is worth $20,000, and he prices it at $20,000 for cash, not seller financing, cash. And now what happens is people go look at it. Here's a buyer's list, let's say, a bunch of people that already have submitted their information to you and say, like, I want to know about this. Or you put it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or Landflame, and people inquire about it. You gather their information. And the nice part is on Zillow, for example, or Facebook Marketplace, when you drop the price, it sends everyone who has earmarked it, sends them a notification that the price dropped. So that's another way you can let them know. But what he does, he lists it very high where it's probably not going to sell. So, and he does it on purpose. So he lists the property at $20,000, and the expectation is that it's going to drive a bunch of interest, but nobody will buy it. So you gather all these people's information, add them to your buyer's list, and then how long later? Like a week, 2 weeks?
Yeah, a week or 2 weeks.
A week to 2 weeks later, he then went and he massively dropped the price to like $11,900. So it's like literally a 40% price drop. Which then, now if you do this nowadays, if you do it on Zillow and Craigslist, it'll spread everywhere around, right? It'll go give everyone the information that the price dropped. And also, if you have a buyer's list, you send another email out saying like, hey, price just dropped 40%. Now you have all the people that already were interested in it looking at that thing again as like, well, I liked it at $20,000. I liked the property. I didn't like the price. Now I still like the property and I love the price. And boom, they just jump on it and you sell it very quickly. Isn't that how it happens then, right?
That's how it works, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes. So, and then he apparently looks like you forgot about your own technique here because you haven't used it very often anymore. But
I should say that I like kind of replaced it.
Okay. Replaced it with what?
Well, when we first started, you were telling us that every so often you'll have a sale.
Okay.
Like right now, we're running a couple properties with the Valentine's sale.
Valentine's sale. There you go. I like that. So I think at the end of the day, though, I think it's not an either or. It's an and. right? You do your Valentine's sale, and then you have a specific property where you have a lot of margin, and you go list it, drop it, sell it, right? So you do one deal like that, another one through a sale, and so on. So you mix it up a little bit, so that your audience and your buyers don't learn to expect a certain thing from you. Because if that's the reason why you can't use this technique all the time. Because if you use it every other week, soon enough, you're training your own customer base, your own buyer base, to basically sit back and wait till the price drops, right? But if you don't do that, if the next day you put the property up there and it's not changing in price, this is the price and it's a great price, then you're training them to take action on this one. You're training them to take action when they see a price that they like, because the price might not last. So love it. And I love that you replaced it. I love that we evolved and you had a few deals that you have available right now. Well, great. So, Paul, just tell me one thing. What if before we wrap up, if there's one thing that you would like to tell somebody who perhaps is right now getting started, who perhaps doesn't have a whole lot of money available to them to go splurge on different bunch of techniques, if you have that perhaps who that money is precious to, or to their time is that they're in a difficult situation in life, or they're just scared of real estate and where do I get started, or they're trying some technique, they're not working. Tell them what is your piece of advice to them? Just a word of advice to somebody who's out there struggling.
I'd say that if somebody's struggling and doesn't have a lot of money to work with, this land business is the best thing I've seen as far as real estate investing goes. Because, land sells for, you can purchase land for so much cheaper than a house or any other kind of structure. You don't have to worry about tenants tearing up the place, wood rotting or anything like that. It just seems like the number of problems that you have with the thing is so much less than with houses and things like that. So yeah, if you're pressed for time, then you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, for one thing. Secondly, the business is scalable. Like if you go into foreclosures, I haven't done this myself, but my understanding is that sometimes they need to send out 50,000 letters to get a deal, something like that. And, that costs money. That takes time. You got to follow up with all these people and all that. And and that's all time. If you don't have the time to invest, then I'd say start sending out 100 or 2 letters. Oh, there's Peter. Peter.
Hey, there's Peter. There we go. That's fine. Hey, how are you? How are you doing, Mr. Peter? We're excited. We're doing a podcast interview right now. You're live. You're going to be on video here on YouTube.
Oh, great.
So here we got the team together. So good to see you, man. And I'll see you probably next week, right?
That's right. Next week.
Yeah, wonderful. We have next week. We have our ultimate boardroom meeting here in Phoenix, and Peter and Paul are part of that. So they're coming together and spend 2 days with us. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Very good.
Yeah, but just to continue that thought, so the same thing is true with the money. Instead of bringing in $200,000 to buy a house or whatever you need to do the financing, a lot of these deals you can finance yourself because they're so small.
What is the average price that you pay for a property?
Ever since you came out with LPG2, we've upped the values of these properties. As you know, we started out in the desert there.
Right.
And we were getting properties for $50 or $100, right?
$50 or $100 for a property. Now, how much do you pay today, these days?
It's somewhere between 2 and 10.
Between $2,000 and $10,000, and then you go flip them for between 10 and 30.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right, so that makes sense. So this is a great thing. So yes, with that you don't need that much. So great. So with that, wonderful. Thank you very much. So that's so in bottom line, if somebody gets started and is struggling out there, whether or not they have money or not, there's ways to make real estate work. What I always say to tell people is pick something. Look at where you are right now. Look at the situation you are, the time that you have, and then look at the real estate market, and then pick the piece that fits your situation and your abilities and your level of knowledge the best. When we got started, we picked land because we had no freaking clue about houses. right? We had no idea. We had no time. I was traveling all this time. I was traveling 100% for business and not business, for my job, really. And I had no time for a rehab. I had no time to even find houses. I had no time to meet with sellers. I had no time for all this stuff. So we jumped on something that we could do without having to go look at it. A land you don't need to look at. You don't need too much money. We bought our first deal for $400. You beat us, right? With $60 or $100, right? And so it's that thing. So it fit to us, right? It fit to us, and it fit to you in your situation. All right. So with that, thank you very much, Paul, for being available for this interview. Again, Paul is also part of our Facebook group. So if you're not part of a Facebook group yet, go look for the Land Profit Generator real estate group in Facebook. Also go to landprofitgenerator.com to go check out our program, our Land Profit Generator, and leave us a comment below, leave a question below. We'll monitor that. We answer to them, and also leave us a 5-star review. So with that, thank you very much, Paul.
Jack, can I say just one other thing since you reminded me? I tried a bunch of different things, and your customer service is head and shoulders above what I've seen out there in the industry. So when people join your group, they can be very confident that they'll get a response back, a phone call, email, something, because somebody's there, and you have so many ways for people to contact your support group that I've never seen anything like it. It's very good. So people can have confidence that they'll get a response from your group.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I will pass that on to my team because they're the ones who are making all of it happen.
Well, thank you, Jack. Appreciate you having me on here.
Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Enjoyed this episode? Then make sure you like, subscribe, and post your comments and questions below the video. We're looking forward to hearing from you.